Guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have something really cool to take a look at today, something I acquired through Aliexpress, and it's another one of those kind of unbranded, unknown figures. I don't know anything about it, but when I had seen it on Aliexpress, I thought it was super cool looking and almost perfectly represented that kind of vintage Tyrannosaurus Rex that I would have seen in probably like the early 90s, maybe late 80s potentially, where it seemed like they were kind of transitioning to almost make them look a little more up to date, but they still had that vintage look. And this is the Rex that I found on there, and it's super cool looking, still sporting that kind of tripod position, but having a really nice kind of a less lizard-like, lumbering lizard-like type of an appearance, I should say. But it looks really neat, and again, honestly, makes me feel like it's something that I would have absolutely seen in like the early 90s as far as a T-Rex would go, and I love that because that era was definitely a big part of my childhood, so having a Rex that resembles that type of a look is definitely a huge plus to me, but I definitely am happy with this purchase. I can say that straight away, and there are actually quite a few other figures that are also following in this same style. There's a Spinosaurus, or in my opinion, it looks more like it would be potentially like a Suchomimus or maybe a weird irritator or something, but also kind of has like that vintage look to it. And there are some others on there that I definitely want to get a hold of and review for you guys very soon. I do have that Spinosaurus here to have a review up in a few days, but I am more concerned with this Rex right now, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the T-Rex, you can see that the actual detailing is really nicely done. Like, there is a lot of really nice fine detail to be found on the Rex. Lots of really nice scale detail here on the lower jaw, and some really nice texturing to the skin up here on the face of our Rex. You can also see the nostrils are sculpted out up here at the tip of the snout, and you can see the eyes are painted with a yellow, giving a nice black pupil, and they also sport a glossy look to them. Very nice paintwork on the figure as well. I feel like the only thing that it's honestly missing would be a nice dark wash, and I may actually apply a dark wash to it at some point just to give it a little bit of a better appearance, because I actually do kind of like the paint scheme that they've gone with on the figure. It just really needs a wash to make it look more realistic. You can see the inside of the mouth has some pretty nice looking detail, but nothing over the top. You can see the tongue sticking up here as it's letting out a roar. Very nice dark coloration on the inside of the mouth right there. You can see the teeth are sort of decently painted, but they're kind of sloppy at the same time, which I'm impressed in general with the actual paintwork of the figure. It's actually fairly decently well painted, but the mouth is the one area that I can say definitely doesn't look very good. So if I do add that wash, I may end up touching up the mouth as well to just give it a bit of a nicer paint job, because the paint is really sloppy inside the mouth right there. Taking a look up here at the top of the head, again, you can see how nice the scale detail is up here on the top of the head of this Rex, and there's a nice kind of a maroonish red type of a color that leaks down there from the top of the head, runs up over top of the eyebrow area and everything like that. Again, I've never seen this sculpt before, so I don't know if it's like a bootleg of something else, and if it is and you guys know, please let me know, or if it's like a totally original sculpt. But I thought it was really cool looking, so I placed an order for it right away. As you lead down into the neck, you can see some more really nice scale detail, lots of creasing and everything back here as the Rex has its head turned to the right, so it would be creasing the neck skin right there. And you can see how the neck skin is kind of like twisting with the turn in the head. You can see some more really nice scale detail. Again, that scale detail looks like it is just aching for a dark wash. More really nice creasing and everything down here on the underside of the neck. Beautiful detailing, as well as the throat itself elaborated from the skin right there. As you lead down into the body, you can see the shoulder blade a little bit protruding from the skin right there. You can also see the Tyrannosaurus arms, which I would say these were probably like the standard Rex arms for that era that I feel like this figure absolutely perfectly represents. There is a seam here in the side of the dinosaur in like the chest region, and all of the figures of this style seem to have that seam, but I personally don't really mind it very much. It is noticeable, but it's not a big deal. You can see the stomach region looks pretty nice. Definitely has a little bit of girth right there in the stomach region, and then you can see more beautiful detailing here to the underside, as well as like some really nice chest muscles and everything. Honestly, I'm always so impressed when I get one of these unknown, unbranded figures and they turn out as nice as this one is. Considering I have no idea who created this figure, is very impressive to me. You can see the spinal column running down the back here of the dinosaur. You can also see some nice creasing there in front of the thigh, as well as some decent looking muscle tone there in the thigh, kind of highlighted with that maroonish color. They conveniently placed it right there in the areas of the muscle definition. You can also see the calf muscle right there. Very nice and big bulging calf muscle. The kneecap present here in the front of the leg. Very nice looking Rex foot sculpt as well. The nails are not too well painted, but that's probably another area I would touch up. There is a dew claw back there, which is nice to see, but I think the overall appearance of the foot is actually quite nicely done. Just needs a little bit better paintwork. And then as we lead back up here into the tail, you can see more really nice texturing to the skin and everything nice. Like stretching and folding of the skin reacting to the movement of the Tyrannosaurus. More of those maroonish stripes that continue to run down the course of the body, and the scale detail and everything looks quite nice as we have a very nice curve to the tail right there. And then if we take a look at the opposing side, you can kind of see the skin stretching more so over here. Also some tensing in the neck as the Rex has its head turned to the right. You can also see the eye paint is also quite nicely done over here. Just that mouth is horrendous as far as the paint application goes. As you move down the course of the neck, again, you see more really nice texturing to the skin as well as some nice creasing and stuff, but also kind of like some stretching to the skin because of the Rex turning its head. You can also see the shoulder blade over here, and again, the really nicely sculpted out Rex arms. The nails on the hands are also not painted very well, so that's another area that definitely would need to be touched up. And then you can see the stomach region looks pretty good down here. Again, the actual scale detail and everything here in the stomach region looks more like a skin texture as opposed to like scaling, but it looks pretty nice. And you can see more of that maroonish paint running down here into the stomach region. More decent looking detail right there. It looks good when we get down here, but over here it's a little iffy, but still pretty nice. And you can see the musculature over here in the thigh, again, just like we had seen on the previous side, and in the calf region. The Rex is standing up tall in a tripod position, so you can see the legs aren't too far off as far as the positioning goes from one another. And you can also see the nails, again, are really sloppily painted, but the foot sculpt does look quite cool. And then more kind of like skin creasing and stuff back here in the tail as we lead out the length of that tail. The tail isn't too big, it's a little bit short, but still pretty nice looking. Again, it's definitely not the best interpretation of a vintage Rex, that's for sure, but as far as capturing that kind of like late 80s, early 90s style Tyrannosaurus, like right before Jurassic Park hit, and kind of like changed everything as far as dinosaurs go, I think it really does look quite nice. And even though it has some sloppy paintwork, not generally the best paint application, overall, it's still a really cool looking Tyrannosaurus. As far as a size goes for our Rex, it definitely has some decent size to it, even though the tail's curled there behind the body, so it's a little hard to really get to it. But if we go just like diagonally, you can see that the Rex is roughly about 11.5 inches, I would say, or about 29 centimeters. Definitely not the most accurate measurement due to the positioning of the body. And then for a height on our Rex, it is about 7 3/4 inches or about 19.5 centimeters. But it does still sport a pretty impressive size, and to show you that, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our unbranded and unknown, quite cool looking, sort of vintage style Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you can definitely see that the Rex sports a pretty big size in comparison to the figures you see before you. And considering the Papo Rex is a pretty decently sized figure, and this unknown kind of a Rex is quite a bit taller, I really feel like that shows how impressive the size is overall. So this definitely was a good purchase on my part. I'm really happy with this figure and really psyched in general to have discovered this on Aliexpress, because it was just like randomly sitting hidden in the back of Aliexpress, and I stumbled upon it one day, and I'm really happy that I did, because the figure is actually really cool. And when I had seen the initial listing, I thought it was going to be like a soft squishy feel, which sometimes can be a good thing, especially when it comes to like Recur figures, Dasmare's Toys figures, and even some of the National Geographic Wildlife WOW figures are really quite cool. But a lot of the AliExpress kind of soft squishy figures are not all that good. but I am pleased to say that it is not. It is actually a very hard plastic, so it's not one of those soft, squishy feels that are kind of cheap on AliExpress. And the detailing of the figure is really quite nicely done on the model, like impressively well done for being something that I have no idea of the origins of. And I feel like they did a great job of showing off movement in the sculpt as well as beautiful texturing to the skin throughout the entire figure. I definitely love the tripod position that we have for the Rex, and just generally like the entire head shape of the Tyrannosaurus. It is really cool looking, if you ask me. And again, perfectly captures that vintage style Rex of like the late 80s, early 90s. The paint job is appealing looking, but it's not that great. I feel like it definitely could be better, but I feel like this is a fairly similar looking paint scheme to what you would have seen on that style Rex also at that time, so I kind of like the paint scheme. The paint job has some ups and has some downs, pretty decently painted eyes, and the coloration of the body is nice and naturally applied, but some areas don't look so good, like the teeth are really sloppy, the nails on the hands and feet are also quite poorly painted. The inside of the mouth does sport a nice gloss coat, so that is a plus as far as that goes, and as do the eyes. So they have done some pretty good paintwork on this figure, but also some pretty poor paintwork in other areas. Still a really cool looking Tyrannosaurus, and with a nice dark wash, I feel like it would look really beautiful overall, and a few minor touch-ups, and you'd have yourself a really nice looking kind of a vintage late 80s, early 90s style Tyrannosaurus in a cool tripod pose. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on AliExpress. So make sure you check the description, go buy this really cool figure, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.